Hi, everyone. Hi. Yeah. It is not lost on me at all that this is the post-lunch session. So it's kind of like the food coma crew. I've got good news for you, though. I have a lot of videos in here, so you can just kick back and relax. I was asked to do a presentation on this subhead here. Is VR the next generation? I was a bit suspicious of next generation. The next generation of immersive experiences. Is it? And I thought that was, and we talked about it, and I was going to do it, and I actually started creating the presentation. And then I realized that it's just really presumptive to still talk about kind of VR as a next anything, just because we have what I call this kind of gap of disappointment. We're still in this gap of disappointment with VR, where we're living in a world now where there are very few devices out in the wild. The early stage content that's being made by the pioneers of VR is good, and I really applaud it. It's not easy making stuff on VR, and we'll talk a bit about that later. But it's no way near what we're being promised. So we're in this gap of disappointment, and I wanted to talk to you today, before I get into more of the immersive experiences stuff that I should be talking about, some fundamentals about why we should believe in VR. I take the opportunity whenever I'm in front of large groups of people after lunch to talk about this, because I think this is a fundamental kind of challenge that we're still experiencing in this industry and the broader adjacent industries. Just this, is it going to happen, isn't it going to happen sense of VR. So, without further ado, so I can get off this first slide, here's a bold statement. I think that in about 10 years, sometime between now and the next 10 years, I think on a daily basis, 1 billion people are going to interact with some form of VR or AR between now and 2026. I think it's going to happen. 1 billion people a day. I'm going to talk about how I think that's going to happen, by the way. So we're really, at the edge of a really historical moment. If there's going to be that many people interacting with this new thing, it's going to really shape what it means to be human. And it's therefore a generational moment that's going to match and likely exceed other impactful generational moments that have been driven by technology that have really shaped kind of civilization and humanity over the last 150 years. So, and the reason why we're talking about it as a generational moment is because at the core of it, we're talking about the ability for anyone to build new realities that have presence for the people using them, a different kind of presence. And that presence will enable us to go to different places and do different things. And it's going to do something really simple, because when experiences and when technologies allow us to do those, to experience things in a new way, it really empowers our most valuable commodity as human beings, and that's our time. All of the great technological achievements of the last 150 years have empowered us because they've allowed us to use our time in different ways. And so I'm going to talk a bit about those things, just to kind of get us all on the same page, because like I said, I think we're still in that gap of disappointment. So now at Unity, we're kind of at the hub, at the nexus. We're very fortunate to be there of this great generational moment. So we are 100% certain that the technologies behind VR, augmented reality, mixed reality will have an impact on the world in the same way that, like I've said, those great technical advances have changed our lives in the past. Because those things, as I mentioned, they gave us more power per minute. And I want to take us on a little history lesson. This is the bit that I like doing to big groups whenever I can, so you're going to indulge me. Thanks. Appreciate that. I want to take us on a little history lesson to remind us of those big technical advancements that have happened to us as people over that period of time, and kind of parallel them to what we're seeing with VR and how VR can do the same, but in another way. So the first one, I'm going to take you all the way back. The first one was electricity. Now, we really take it for granted, right? We're kind of a bit crap like that. We take the things we use every day for granted. But of course, it wasn't always that way, and it changed our lives forever. It really affected everything. You know, trade was instantly changed with the telegram and the fact that you could talk about things over massive distances. Our productivity increased. And here's the fundamental that we take for granted. Imagine a world that was dark at night, where you couldn't do anything other than through the light of flame. And it changed. Electricity changed that. Electricity allowed us to use the time at night to be more productive. It also changed how we think about building cities and the architecture, because electric pumps and electric elevators, et cetera, could just build what we take for granted today. So electricity was the first one. The combustion engine just revolutionized travel, as we know. Again, we take it for granted. I doubt many people are really from Barcelona who are in this room. So we've all come here aided by one of the technological marvels that allowed us to use time in a different way. You know, it literally changed what we eat. It changed where we live and work and who we can become. It's made us essentially time travelers, able to get to places faster and travel further. And VR is going to do the same. VR is going to do the same. TV influenced how people think about things literally: politics, commerce, race, class, everything in between. It brought the kind of realities of other cultures and countries to a global audience. It changed how we consumed and how brands affected consumer tastes. And it's a force that still today almost beats out every other medium on the planet. But again, it allowed people to use their time in different ways and consume things they'd never, ever consumed before. It created essentially new dimensions for them. PCs, they're everywhere. We've got them in our bags here today. They changed our productivity, our work at home, touching our personal and business lives. And obviously with it came email, which saved time and again, stretched the dimensions of time for us so we could be more productive. Sometimes. Right? Sometimes. And the web. Now, the web, again, we take it for granted. It hasn't been around that long. It hit us like a tidal wave and completely rearranged our world. As I mentioned, email connected us like a personal telegraph, but the web gave form to our voice and words. In an instant, we could explore the world, right? We can explore the world today on the web in completely new ways, and we had access to a vast library of knowledge that we only still scratch the surface from, but we take for granted. The electronic economy emerged, and the retail industry, among others, was upended because of it. And we continue to push the boundaries because the web is now accessed on this wonderful device that we go to bed with, next to, we carry in our pockets, it's on the table, it's in front of people who are already thinking, I've seen this history lesson, I'm going to look at email in this meeting, right? It's all there, it's in front of us. So, and adoption wasn't instant of the smartphone. So this is an important point, because when you look at the curve of adoption of VR, and you parallel it to the curve of adoption of smartphones, I remember 2007, when the first iPhone came out. I also remember back to a day in my past, no doubt like everyone in this room, when we just simply didn't have a smartphone. And the world has generated the ability now for this technology to consume us and allow us to benefit from it. So, you know, where today there are only 1.5 billion PCs, you've got to compare that to 3 billion smartphones on the planet. And in some cases, the smartphone doubles as both phone and PC. So the app economy's risen, 1.5 million apps on both stores, Google Play, also on the iPhone store. And its unparalleled reach gives access to a miniature PC that can surf the web word process, take amazing pictures or videos across the globe. And it's changed us. It's just absolutely changed who we are. And that's what VR is going to do. VR is going to have the same level of impact as all of these technical marvels that have stretched through the generations and caused these generational moments. I can guarantee it. Now, every life-changing technology had its detractors, right? Always had their detractors. Always had, every life-changing technology has actually had the gap of disappointment that we're living in VR right now. And it's encountered pushback, delaying the time it took to grab hold and make that profound difference. Whether it was the car, as Henry Ford so eloquently pointed out, or all of the other amazing tech. Now, the good news is, in VR, the hardware cycle in VR, we're not actually at the beginning of the hardware cycle in VR. We're actually, I believe, in the last 10%. We're in the polish and perfection phase, because VR isn't new. I mean, we heard earlier on today about pioneers in VR who've been doing it for close to a decade and just over. It's definitely not new, and it's not a fad either. In fact, if you look back, VR is 50 years in the making. We're at the tip of the spear now of a 50-year hardware cycle that is just coming to fruition. And I wanted to just validate that for you very quickly. This is in 1970. So this is from the 1970s, and this is someone wearing a VR headset in 1970s. This is from the 90s. It doesn't look massively different from the form factor that we're seeing today from some of the tethered headsets, but this was in the 90s, not that long, 26 years ago. This is a lady wearing a controller and a headset from 1990s. Looks like a Wiimote. And this one's a bit stunning, and it's the most boring slide you're going to see today, but the data on it is pretty impactful. This is a slide from the 90s, from a business presentation, talking about how VR is based on 3 decades of research. So in the 90s, that would have been the 60s, which was 50 years ago. So in 50 years, right? 50 years of hardware. And this is a kid in the 90s looking ecstatic. And this is a woman in the 80s using VR to drive this really cool underwater submarine. Looks fantastic. Looks like Johnny 5 underwater. So this shows that while we're at the beginning of a curve, not actually the beginning of a curve, we think we are, but we're actually in the latter stages of one of the longest technology arcs that we've known. So it's going to be worth it because the work's gone in. So it brings us to today. There's a lot of heat, there's a lot of buzz around this world of VR, and will it create the immersive experiences? But we haven't reached that magical moment yet when VR will change the world. We really haven't. And we haven't reached it when VR will provide a level of immersion and presence that we all think so, or people like me tell you. So how is virtual reality going to do that? What's at the core of VR that makes us so damn sure that it is going to do this step change in how people use their time? Well, when you think about it, it's actually really simple. I think it's simple. And the clue is in the name, virtual reality, right? It's going to enrich people's lives by creating more worlds for people to live in. Now, we're on the edge of being able to transport people to other very real places instantly. Just imagine what you can do if you can make other realities have presence and meaning. Imagine how that unlocks the ability to consume education, design, new ways of socializing, new communication ways, healthcare, how it unlocks travel, how it unlocks entertainment, how it unlocks shopping. Basically, every pursuit on the planet can be unlocked because we're about to be able to provide tangible new realities that you can do things in all of these different categories. And they'll be accessible anytime by anyone. I think we're closer than ever of doing this. And I think we're closer than ever because of one part of the VR mix. I think mobile is actually going to get us closer than ever. No disrespect whatsoever to the excellent Vive and the excellent Rift, which are capable of providing spectacular high-def, fast refresh rate experiences. They can and they will have deep communities. And I mean, I think we heard today from Roy how there's projections of from Oculus about 100 million tethered headsets, high-def headsets, integrated headsets. But really, mobile is where the scale is going to be. 100 million's all right, but back to my point earlier, I think there's going to be 1 billion people in VR over the next 10 years, and that's going to come from mobile. And it really began with cardboard. So through the beginning of this year, cardboard shipped over 5 million viewers and 1,000 compatible applications. So starting to see it. You know, Gear VR had 1 million users plus in April, you know, Google's announced Daydream. This, for me, is the major unlock. So Daydream is expected to be arriving soon. And you know, what Daydream is doing is it's allowing interactivity, and it's allowing control through the controller so you can participate in the experience even more. Now, the important thing that I think about Daydream is if you think about the hardware cycle of Android phones and the upgrade cycle, on average, at a worst-case level, Android customers upgrade their phones every 5 years, right? Every 5 years. And that's kind of a worst-case average, which means from Daydream's launch to 5 years after that, my estimate is there's going to be at least 1 billion Daydream-equipped phones that will exist in the market globally. Right, so this is a big deal. Daydream's a big deal. I think it's a major unlock for us. Additionally, when you think about customer behavior and training customers and getting customers kind of used to using this new medium, Facebook 360 was introduced in June, and while you don't need a headset, what it's doing is it's training people to think about the 360 dimensionality of looking at things in 3 dimensions and experiencing things in 3 dimensions. And finally, you know, AR recently hit the mainstream with the meme of 2016 with Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is on a curve as it unlocks in different territories around the world to, in some ways, have more of an audience than some social networks. So, you know, this is AR powering the scale of new social networks. So, mobile's going to be an unlock. Now, I wanted to talk to you about how we're going to get there. So this is going to happen. These quantities and scale of reach is going to happen. And how are people going to be able to seize the opportunity of creating immersive experiences in this world? Well, you know, every town, city, or even kind of and world ever built relied on the people to do it, so that's no different. But it also relied on people's ability to get their hands on the right level of tools. And virtual worlds are no different, and are going to require some pretty amazing tools. And you know, right now, we're in a fortunate position at Unity, depending on who you talk to and the platform that you're talking about, to be in a position where about 55 to 80% of the pioneers going into VR are using Unity. And so we're really proud about that, and we're using that to try and determine how do we take the next step in equipping people with the right tools to make the next level of immersion in the world. So just some other facts on Unity very quickly while I'm here and in the middle of my presentation to give you some more substance about our credentials. Many of you use Unity, so thank you very much for that. We're humbled by people who use it. We have at Unity about 1.6 billion monthly downloads of the games that use Unity. So we're really fortunate. We've got this reach and this ability to understand what the market's doing. That's like 600 downloads a second on average. About a third of the top 1,000 grossing mobile games are powered by Unity, so we're really kind of understanding of what it takes to capture people's time. And you know, we're adding new developers at a really great rate, humbled by that. You know, we have thousands of new developers coming to the platform a day, many of them coming to start their journey to pioneer immersive experiences in VR. So many of these 5,000 plus people are coming to download Unity every single day because they're seeing this magic that exists in the ability to get to immersive experiences in VR. And you know, we track 1.7 billion devices around the world. As many of you know, we got there by really standing for developers. We stand for democratization of development, solving hard problems, and enabling success. And we're trying to do that in VR at this very moment by investing in it pretty heavily. One of the areas that we've been investing in is new tools. So new immersive content needs new tools to create that content and to achieve that presence that I've talked about. Because in order to build those worlds, these new realities that will change people's use of time, we realized that the current flat screen creation process of window-based mouse click, it really isn't enough. And so we created what we're calling Unity Editor VR, and the key idea here is this. You create from inside the VR environment you're making. You create from the inside out. I've got a video here. This is the first video I promised, so if you need to relax, this is the time. Now, for those of you who know how to make games, and I know there are many of you in the audience, I think you'll appreciate the power of what we're trying to do here. For those of you that don't really know how to make games, I think you'll find this intuitive, I hope you'll find it intuitive and common sense, which is exactly what it's meant to be. If you want to make in a virtual 3D space and you want to make a new kind of experience, you really need to be in that space and not extracted from that space as you make your design decisions. So let's take a look at this. It's actually from earlier this year in a presentation we made, so let's take a look.
All right. See here, I'm just actually in Unity, and we just have a new window editor VR, which I'll now make a little bit bigger so you guys can actually see what's going on. Okay. See you guys after this. Okay. All right, so if you saw the video about Editor VR from last month, we had the scene set up a little bit. But this time we started to go out with the blank scene. You see here at the edge of my controller, I have a bunch of assets, different game objects. So let's start off by adding in the ground. There you go. And it's a little bit dark over here, so I've got a directional light that I'm going to add in. Let's put it up there. You can see that we have the gizmo in VR, so I can actually just rotate like so. And now we've got some light added to our scene. Now I'm going to fill it out. We're going to make like a little mountain village. So I'm going to add some mountains, pick them up, move them over. But I hear that I only have a couple of minutes on stage, and you guys have been here for a long time now. So I'm going to show off something that we made to make it even faster for you guys to work in VR and quickly out your scene. This is called the chessboard. And this is actually just a smaller version of the scene that you're already in. So you can actually just pick up game objects like this. You just float, put the mountain down, and there you go. All right, so I'm going to add a little bit more over here. I know, this is super fun, by the way. Hopefully we get this out to you quickly so you can try it. You can see you can actually just rotate, and there's a mountain. I can put it over here, like so. Okay. Yes, it's like playing with like the best dollhouse in the world. This is awesome. And let me zoom in a little bit more here. Now I'm going to add in some more game objects. I've got a building, house, another house, another house. Got some trees. Let's just stick it all in here. We got a barrel. How about this fireplace thingy? Got a tree stump. Okay, all right. So I've got the stuff, and I'm going to zoom in like so. We can actually just pick up the objects and move them around. I'm going to pick up this house over here like this. And actually, I'm going to lock the ground because it turns out you end up hitting the ground a lot. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm going to move this house over here, pick up this other like in thing, put it over here, pick up this other little house, set it maybe here, this here. Got to turn around this big kind of creepy church thing. As you can see, just got the scene set up. It looks like this tree is running into this house, so I can actually just pick it up right here and move it over. But honestly, whether or not you're making a VR game, this is actually just a really quick and efficient way to just lay out a scene really, really fast. Add a couple more objects here, pick up this little sign, and put them over there. Ta-da! You got your scene. All right, I got a couple more things. So the lighting, I'm not loving the lighting. I'm going to pick up the lighting, move it over here, but then I can actually just pick up myself. This is a little mini-me, and put myself by the light, and then I can actually just rotate the light and see what the shadows are doing. Yeah, okay, that looks a little bit better. Let's make it a little bit darker. Yeah, there we go. That's dramatic.
There we go. So that's, thank you. Thank you. That applause is for Timony. There's Timony West. She's our principal VI designer based in San Francisco. She's fantastic. And she's She's the principal kind of author of Unity Editor VR. So, new immersive experiences need new tools, and that's an example of a pro tool that we're going to be bringing to market imminently. So I wanted to show you that. But key idea, new tools for new immersion. So this is the moment of a great shift in society, like realizing the world is really round, right? And even though it's the beginning, everyone's going to be on it, not just gamers. So that's I know that's maybe a controversial statement in front of this audience, but not just when I'm talking about 1 billion people a day, that's not 1 billion people a day interacting in games. Games is a slice of that. They're going to be interacting in other forms of their lives and using VR to make their lives better because of time. So I'd like to show you, though, a few examples now of other forms of both entertainment and other forms of use cases for VR that are starting to hint at the level of new levels of immersion and presence that we know we can get to that is going to change people's time. The first is a company I don't know whether many of you have heard of. It's called The Void. Now, they're doing some really cool things in what they call hyper-reality. Nothing like adding another word onto reality. So the idea that they had was to create an untethered experience that incorporates and, in fact, merges the real world and physicality with the virtual overlap. It's really compelling, and I want to show you this and then talk about where this might go for other use cases. If that wasn't cool enough, they've married their proprietary tech, the Unity platform, and Ghostbusters to create this Ghostbusters Experience, which is in Madame Tussauds in New York City. So if you're in New York City or you're passing through, check it out, because this provides kind of what I call the pinnacle of kind of virtual reality experience right now. It combines, obviously, the physical world with the virtual to allow you to walk through and catch ghosts with your virtual backpack and your headset on. I can actually see how this is showing the signs to the future where maybe I can imagine, you don't have to go to an event place like this. Instead, maybe you can stand in your living room and your TV is actually the device that is converting your living room into a room scale environment, and it's talking to your integrated hardware in your headset you're wearing. So you can actually use your living room like a holodeck. So I think, yes, this might be top of the pyramid kind of experience right now that people are being charged money for to go and visit. on a very high level, but this is showing the way forward for kind of what's going to be possible when there's this emergence of technology and hardware at a living room level using TV and integrated headsets. So this is an interesting place to go. Another example kind of lies in science and education. So after generations of using microscopes and then electron microscopes, scientists can now use VR to take the data that they're getting from at an atomic level, the electron microscopes, and convert that into VR experiences that can speed up education on diseases, speed up education on solutions against those diseases, and by giving the scientists new perspectives on what's happening at a molecular level. This short video that I'm about to show you now is from the University of South Wales in Australia, and it combines VR of a cancer cell and then the medicine hitting the cancer cell and being absorbed into it so that people can understand how the absorption layer reacts at the cancer cell level. Super quick part there. So that last sentence, VR being used to design new forms of drug therapy to combat some of the most lengthy conditions that we've seen in civilization. So that's a big win. Now this next piece is important for you to see because I wanted to share it because it deals with haptics. So it deals with physical objects in an environment that talk to the device that the customer's wearing or the user is wearing, and the physical devices actually provide feedback in the experience to really talk about immersion and presence in a new way. In this, it's 1895, and you're in a scientific lab inside a massive flying whale, which happened in 1895. If none of you know that, it's a well-known fact that there was a flying whale in the skies of Europe in 1895. And this augmented reality to mixed reality setting, and it's based on Scott Westerfield's best-selling trilogy Leviathan, lets people engage physically and emotionally with the setting in a new way, right? You can't do it in any other medium, and with human and animal characters, and then fabricate brand new characters based on your work in the lab. So this was released earlier this year to critical acclaim at Sundance, and I want you to have a look at it and pay special attention to the green object things which are in some of the room scales, because those then convert into the devices in the headset. And just get a look for how it's all merged together.
Good stuff. The level of interaction is definitely unprecedented.
It's an amazing journey and experience, and I'm an enlightened man now.
So, a couple of things there, a couple of key thoughts there. That's clearly not a mass market opportunity. You have to have a ready-made studio for that, but it's just paving the way for how VR should be thought about in terms of design and kind of how some of it can fuse together in the future to really make a difference. And lastly, any time that you see people just delighted and overjoyed, you know that you're doing something wonderful. And we've all seen it, I hope, is anytime someone takes off a VR headset, they are just delighted. You've taken them to a new place that they did not know was possible. So, that's something that we should never forget. So this is going to affect everyone, but not just from a consumption standpoint. Each of us who participate in VR professionally or recreationally will ultimately also become creators. This is another key point. And that's what's going to make the metaverse such a compelling place, is this notion that what VR allows in the future is the ability for new creators to actually bring their visions and their worlds to the creation space, maybe built on the platforms that some people in this room create, and then maybe just themselves because they're inspired to use this new medium. So not professional creators, as we know now, but more prosumers, more people who are more consumer than professional. VR is just going to be a new canvas for them. So we've been thinking very hard about that question at Unity, and we're really inspired about how VR and this canvas of VR can be used by a new type of creator to make things. We've been working internally on a project that we think, when it comes to fruition, will allow the consumers of the world to create their worlds and then invite other people to enter them. So essentially just the starting points for the metaverse that we hear a bit about either in fiction or in other media. I'm going to show you the last video, right, as I wind down my talk, and then we'll get to the summary. And this is, I want you to take a look for the call-outs in this in terms of how the consumer chooses assets, how they catalog those assets in their mind, how they interact with those assets, and how they're offered up the opportunity to do new things with their world at the post part of their creativity. So take a look at this.
Hello, my name is you. Yes, like the first letter of Unity. I'll try to help you if you would like. You just need to look at me to activate me. If you need help finding something, like finding trees, call me by saying, "Hey, you?" Okay, let's get started. Here's a few different worlds you can build. Pick your favorite.
The medieval, please. Hey you! Find zombies for me.
I found 102 results.
Filter the word cartoon.
I have only 14 results left. Hey! What would you like to enter as text?
Let's go shoot some zombies! Exclamation mark. What can I do?
Here are some ideas.
Save and invite my Facebook friends.
So, just a couple of ideas there. The first is it would appear that all Unity like to use as demos is kind of medieval-style villages. That is true. We love medieval. But the second thought is far more pertinent. So I showed you earlier Unity Editor VR, right? And we see more as a pro tool. People who use it understand the conventions of lighting, they understand the conventions of textures, because you can change it at a far more atomic level in that piece. Yeah, everything's more selectable, less autonomous. This tool that we continue to prototype is, as you saw, far more easy to use from a consumer perspective. Everything could be done for you to a certain level, and all you need to do is think about the most important aspect, which is just choice. Just choice. So that's one of the big ideas there. The last big idea of this is, imagine a world where hundreds of millions of consumers are creating their worlds, inviting their friends to participate in those worlds, interlinking those worlds together with conventions of economy, conventions of competition, other forms of conventions that give those worlds presence and not just kind of a cosmetic feel. And you start to kind of understand the impact that VR mapped with tools like this could have on people using it. Who's read this book? Okay. So about 50%. So for the 50% who haven't read this book, I'm going to give you some spoilers. Sorry. I'm not going to give you too many spoilers. But what this book offers a particularly dystopian view of the future with VR. But if you see through that and you see between the lines of the narrative, it presents a world where the people in the world experience VR based on their terms. They experience VR based on who they want to be. And yes, they're actually participating in a world created by a big Uber force. But imagine the world was actually created by themselves. And you start to get an idea for the power that I've just explained VR can get to, along with the tools that I've showed. So read this book. If you haven't read this book, read this book. Certainly read this book before the movie comes out, which Spielberg's directing. So read the book. The book's great. Additionally, this book's pretty good too. So if you just want kind of like your 101 on where VR can go, and you get rid of the narrative and peer through, these two books can show you the actual scale and scope and impact that VR can have. Now, this is it. What's the net? Where are we? So we're seeing an acceleration as we come to the end of this R&D phase, this 10% of polish that I talked about, and get into mainstream adoption. Like I've said, hardware changes are coming. They're coming rapidly. Google could see 1 billion devices of Daydream over the next 5 years. Absolutely. The PS VR launch, PlayStation VR, this holiday season, is going to put high-fidelity visuals at a scale that VR needs in the hands of people in their living rooms and bedrooms around the world. It's going to be a further validation for what VR can do. Touch is going to launch on the Rift, right? That's another big step. So we're on the cusp of changes that will continue to redefine how we relate to each other, and perhaps even what it means to exist at some point in time in the future. And instead of one world, instead of one reality, there's going to be thousands, and if not millions more, made by us, made by our consumers, and we'll spend time hanging out in those realities because there'll be really compelling places to hang out in. We'll spend time hanging out in this new metaverse, creating new worlds, moving through these worlds that others are creating, learning, being inspired, meeting people, having fun, and overall just exploring and getting to a larger phase of what it means to be humans. So, we're standing on the edge of a new type of immersion. We're standing on the edge of a new type of presence, and I look forward to seeing you all in there. This is real. Let's go at it. Thanks.